Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tammy Patzer.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited about today's guest, Kimberley Loska. She is a native to California, and Kimberley has motivated audiences, trained leaders, led workshops, and retreats for more than 20 years. Kimberley instructs audiences that there is a purpose in the pain of life. She is a keynote speaker, certified life coach, speakers trainer, and she serves both men and women through her various coaching programs. Kimberley's goal is to motivate people towards change, healing, and freedom. With wholeness and renewal as her goal, she has a passion to exhort and encourage others in their journey towards true transformation. Kimberley knows firsthand how to overcome and survive trauma and shares her story to let others know that her faith is what got her through it in the darkest days. She empowers others to look up, reach out, and step forward. Welcome, Kimberley.
Thank you so much, Tamara, for having me. And that just sounded like a big mouthful, people. So thank you. I'm excited to be here. And it's always a joy just to share my heart with people. And again, just thank you for having me today.
Well, you're welcome. And everyone, just to let you know, Kimberley's website is aheartspeaks.com. So think about it. That pretty much says everything that you need to know because you're speaking from your heart. So I would really like to know more about you and how you got started in business and how you are serving from that heart place.
Oh, thank you. That's a really great question. I like the way you posed that. I started out, I have actually been somewhat counseling people since I was about 16 years old. I've had a heart for people, and I love to hear their stories. And people have told me, I think it's always better when you know what your gifts are because other people tell you. You don't stand up and go, this is me. So I think it's just really been many, many years of counseling people. But honestly, it really didn't kick off the way that it is now until I had a very tragic thing happen in my family. And, my husband and I, we were married for 28 years. We had 3 children. And about 10 years into our marriage, he professed that he had an addiction to pornography. And so honestly, that was a big kick in the stomach for me because I don't know, it doesn't really matter if you're the woman with the man or the man with the woman who's addicted to something like that, but it really causes you to doubt yourself and to compare yourself. I mean, it's not enough that we have, movies and television and all of the articles and magazines to compare ourselves. We're not tall enough, short enough, skinny enough, fat enough. It doesn't matter. We're just not enough. And so I fell victim to that mentality. And it wasn't until years later that I actually came to find that I had married a narcissist. And that's a whole nother show. we could go into that. But we started a church, actually, in our barn. We had a small barn on our property. There were Bible studies that were led there. And long story short, every single week, there were, 2-fold, 3-fold, 4-folds of people that would come back. And it just continued to get larger and larger. My husband went to ministry, became a pastor. But along with that, he was a very successful attorney in Long Beach, California. So about 10 years, we led this church, and it was wonderful. I mean, I loved everything about it. We were counseling couples. We were counseling young and old on our couch 2 to 3 times a week. I was leading the women's ministry and writing curriculum for the children's ministry, and he was teaching twice a week and leading a men's group Saturday morning. All the while, he was continuing to, be an attorney. And I think that, a lot of this pressure revealed things about him. And slowly but surely, I saw him become more and more isolated. And he had decided that it was time for him to step down. And I could tell that for a few years he was really wrestling with that. And either he was ready and I wasn't, or I was ready and he wasn't. But this time I could see that indeed it is time. He had lost this passion that he once had. And I saw a darkness in him. And so he did step down. And about 6 months later, he came to me and told me that he was having an affair. Not only was he having an affair, he had affairs, and he got into alcohol pretty heavily and drugs pretty heavily. And I saw a picture of a man that I had no idea who he was. And, you just try to be the billboard couple and think we're just going to come out of this and we're just going to, really stick it out and overcome. Because honestly, when I look back, I'd overcome quite a bit with him. But we tried counseling for about a year together. And through that time, I found out that he was borderline personality disorder. I had no idea up to that point what that even meant. But it all started making sense. And he was really struggling with this mental disorder. And it was one night at about 2 a.m, after I drank a bottle of wine and put myself to bed, because I was very unhappy. I was absolutely lost. I felt like all my hope was gone. My white picket fence that I thought surrounded me was removed in one instant with one sentence. I'm having an affair. And once again, I went back to the less than, not enough, can't keep your husband, all that, and really, really turned that inward on myself. But that night, I was awakened by a very strong scent in the room. And I couldn't figure out what that was, but I heard a voice in my heart say, "Daughter, I'm with you and I'm for you." Well, I had had a bottle of wine the night before, so let's get that straight. So I rubbed my eyes and I thought, hold on now. And I heard it again in my heart. "Daughter, I'm with you and I'm for you." Then I knew this was the voice of my Lord. And I sat up and I heard it one more time. "Daughter, I'm with you and I'm for you." And tears just began to stream down my face. I was shaking. My heart was aching. But at that moment, Tamara, I raised my hand in the pitch of night. I raised my hand up and I said, "I vote for me. I vote for me." This was this turning point for me. I no longer needed to be ragdolled by this situation. I wasn't going to allow this man any longer to steal my voice, because that's what had happened. Over the years, I lost myself. I lost who I thought that I was. I became very, inward to myself and doubting myself. But it was the struggle. It was a constant back and forth. That's not who you are. That's not who you are. So honestly, it was in that moment that I recognized no more. I am done. And the marriage is done. So through that time, I reinvented myself at 50 years old. And I just said, there's got to be more to life than this. I had endured quite a bit. My ex-husband continued to spiral down. And I became a life coach and was loving every minute of it, embracing a new Kimberly, embracing the voice that I actually have had since I was a little girl of who I was always made to be, but was clouded over by a very possessive and overbearing spouse. And I don't mean to paint him out to be a monster, because clearly I fell in love with this man, and he was a genius. He was very gifted with his speaking, an excellent attorney, making a lot of money every single year. He never took a dime from the church for 10 years as a pastor. He just did not want to do that. In fact, we gave back, to the church so much. But in that time, I learned 3 things. I learned to look up, to reach out, and step forward. So the first thing I learned about looking up is, when you hit rock bottom, there's no other place to look, right? But up. And I learned that, all my controlling and wrestling and trying to make this thing fit, it wasn't working. And so I looked up to God, the one who is greater than I, and I said, I need you. I need you because I don't know what to do. I don't know what path to take. And it was then that I learned about my true identity. I learned my value. I learned who I truly belonged to. And from that, he taught me to reach out. When you're at the bottom and the spotlight was on me in the community. I mean, everybody knew, John, and we're hearing about John and I separating and then divorcing. And I grew up in Northern California, the tip top in Crescent City, California. And that's where the redwood trees are found. And they're magnificent. They're tall, they're massive. And I remember one time walking through the forest up there with my grandfather, and I noticed this big tree that had toppled over. And I wondered, why is that one toppled over? But just over here, there's like 3 or 4 and about the same size, about the same height, and they seem to be fine. And what I came to find later on in life is that redwood trees have a very shallow root base. And the storms of Northern California were unforgiving. So a lot of rain, a lot of wind. And when the storms came with this single redwood tree, it couldn't bear it. And so the weight of it all tipped over. But when you looked at the other trees that were just a stone's throw away, you see their roots interlocked. So though they're shallow, once they're interlocked that way, it creates a strong foundation. And God reminded me of that. And I reached out to a handful of people that I knew I could trust, that I could rely on. And the word says that we're to give out the same comfort that was given to us. And so I reached out and I locked arms with people that I could journey with, because honestly, we were never meant to journey life alone. We are meant for community. I mean, even the apostles were sent out 2 by 2, not by themselves, on their own, so that when one falls, the other is there to pick them up. God deems community and relationship very precious. And so because I looked up, I relinquished, this control. I locked arms with people who would help me, who I could lean on, who I could look to for advice and wisdom. I was then able to have the boldness and the courage to step forward into the newness that he had planned for me. And I'm a very visual person. And so the vision that he gave me was a trapeze, the flying trapeze. And when you see an artist of the trapeze, and they've got that trapeze in hand, I mean, it's kind of crazy. They're up very high in the air, and they have to jump off this tiny little launching pad. And there's another trapeze that is coming towards them. And the thing is, they have to let go of the trapeze they've been holding on to for their security. And there's that moment in time where you have to let go of everything and trust what's in front of you. And they leap out, they reach out and latch onto that new trapeze, and it takes them in to another safe landing. And that's what I felt, Tamara. It was like I was being led into a newness, but I had to take steps of faith. But it wasn't just a blind faith, I hope it works out. I had seen how God had led me through the deepest, darkest time of my life, the deepest water, and he brought me through it. He brought me through it. And so now my heart's desire in life is to lend my voice, because it's not easy. It's not easy to go stand on a platform and sort of be naked in front of people, right? And tell them this is me, right? This is what happened to me, warts and all, let's sit around and have a cup of coffee. It's not a light topic at all. It's painful. But what I found through this time is that there's purpose in the pain. And I wish it stopped there, that story, but unfortunately it doesn't. Because my ex-husband, as I stated, continued to spiral downward, and he was going to be fired from his job. So he called me in the evening, and he called me and he said, Kimberly, I really need to talk to you. And he said, I'm getting fired tomorrow. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. But I said, John, it's time to come home. You need to get back to the person you were always made to be. You've turned into something that I don't know. Your kids don't recognize it. You have people who love you all around. Come on, you can get help. And he said, I'm just too tired. I'm too tired. And I just don't think I have it in me to start all over again. And I said, I had my coach's hat on, and I said, John, you're going to be okay. And he goes, no, you're going to be okay. The kids are going to be okay. And I just want you to know one thing. And I said, what's that? And he said, I love you. I always have. And I'm so, so sorry for the pain that I caused you, that I inflicted into your life. I'd heard these sorts of things before. A narcissist is very good at pulling you back in. And I had to push myself back and away from the conversation. And I said, I want you to know, John, I'm going to be praying for you. And I really hope that you'll give me a call after tomorrow's meeting. What time is it at? He said 2:30. I said, okay, I hope that you're going to call me, and I'll be praying. I'll be praying. And he said, thank you so much. And we hung up. The next day came, and 2:30 came, 3:00 came, 3:15 came. And I thought just something in my belly was telling me something's not right. I sent him a text. I called him. No answer. Went directly to voicemail. And shortly thereafter, I received a phone call. And it was my daughter-in-law. And she said, are you by yourself? And I said, no, my daughter's with me. And she said, there's been a shooting. And I said, oh my gosh, where? And she said, John's office. I knew in that instant, I thought to myself, could this be John? Could this be John? My heart began to race, and I thought to myself, how am I going to tell my kids this? If this is true, how am I going to tell them? She said, turn the news on, and I did. And it showed people fleeing from the office. And what had occurred is John went in to the office for that meeting, and he shot and killed his senior partner, critically wounded his other senior partner, and then turned the gun on himself and committed suicide. You know, that never, the impact of that in my heart never gets easier about then when I share that. Sorry about that. But the thing is, the question I would pose is, what does one do when the bottom drops out? It is such a sad story. But I can promise you now that I can look back and I can know that everybody experiences pain. Everybody experiences trials, circumstances that are devastating. But we have to get to a place where we can come to the understanding of the fact that there is purpose in that pain. If I hadn't gone through all the things that I went through with John, I would just be counseling people, and I would have a sympathetic heart towards them. But since all of this, you know, I listened to everything under the sun for so many years, from old, from young, from couples, teenagers. And I've gone from a sympathetic heart to an empathetic heart. There's something different when you deal with somebody who's walked through the same pain or the similar type of pain that you have. And I believe it's made me a better coach. I believe it's made me a better human being. As crazy as that sounds, it sounds counterintuitive because a lot of people choose to become bitter. They become isolated. They become fearful. And I just wasn't going to have that happen. And so since then, you know, I've written and I've spoken on the identity crisis, which is people who just don't know who they are, which was where I was. I mean, I was a Christian, but I didn't fully understand the depths of what that meant. My voice had been stolen from me, or I had given it away slowly but surely. But that looking up, reaching out, and stepping forward has caused me to come to the place where I understand that I am valuable. I am valuable. I am precious in God's eyes. And if we are deemed valuable, then we have to know that we have worth. We have worth to Him. He has a plan for us. I don't think anybody would write this out as my plan. I certainly wouldn't have said, oh, this is a great plan, you know, but His plans are for good. And it's not just necessarily for me. It's so that I can lend my voice for a woman who doesn't yet have that voice and hopefully give her courage. Give her courage to stand up and see these things about herself. And once we know that we have value and we have worth, then we have purpose. You know, the Lord says that I have plans for you, plans to prosper you, plans to give you a hope and a future. And I made a decision that I was no longer going to allow my circumstances nor a person to dictate my true identity. It was going to dictate what my future would be. And is it painful still? Yeah, it's very painful. Do I battle triggers from all of these things? Yes. But I do have a happy ever after, just so you know. God brought me a man in the middle of this crisis, right before John did this horrible event. And a year later, we were married. And so we've been married for 2 years now, very happy. And God has definitely redeemed what the locusts have eaten. He has brought beauty from ashes. And I now can honestly say that I look back, I see the pain in it. And I know I have purpose, because if somebody asked me, is it worth it though? Was it worth it? Yeah, because I get to help other people. I get to walk out with them trauma and the effects of trauma and the things that it does. I get to work with people who have gone through post-traumatic syndrome, who are dealing with anxiety, dealing with old triggers, dealing with the less than, not good enough. And if you were to come to me and I would, say, oh gosh, that's so awful, Tamara, I'm so sorry to hear that for your life. That's different, isn't it, than somebody who says, girl, I get you. I understand the depths of that type of pain, but there's hope. There's always hope. So that is now my candy store. And I work with a lot of different people with a lot of different issues. And I love inspiring people, motivating people, and telling them there's a power in choice. And each one of us has a choice in life. And it's, what are we going to do with that choice, with the pain that comes, and how will we too find purpose in it?
Listening to your story, it does make me really think about all of the different pains that people go through, and there is that hope. You've actually written a book that's coming out soon.
Yes.
So is the book, is it about what you've been talking about? What is
the introduction is, Tamara, the introduction is my story, because I feel like you always have to earn the right to speak into somebody's life. It's not just given to you. And I want people to know that, okay, this lady with lipstick on and curled hair, there's actually some depth to where she's been. I've been through a few rodeos. And so, yes, I do. I wanted that to come forth. But the rest of the book is more of inspiration and giving hope and giving tools and how to, and sort of pondering things, chewing on things, and allowing a lot of people to just go within themselves and find out, how can I have a different perspective on life? How can this sort of thing, change me? How can I use this to catapult me into the next chapter that God is calling me to?
Wow,
and also just wanted to mention, I'm very excited because this is very new. I haven't shared this with you yet, but I am starting to film my new talk show in North Hollywood. And of course, it's called A Heart Speaks. So I'm very excited about that as well. That's on Jewel TV, JUL TV network. And I'm very excited about that because I get to sort of swoop around people who've gone through various things, stories, people who've, done prison ministry, people who've lived in their car for several months with their children, and just really looking at the raw nitty-gritties of life. And again, just extending hope to people and making them feel so not alone and so not so isolated. And allowing, as you stated earlier, my heart to speak, because God is concerned with the matters of your heart, because your heart matters to God. So I'm very excited about that too, and that should be launched very, very soon.
Wow, books, TV shows, and also I understand that you're also part of Tam Luke's Boss Up book and podcast also. Why did you decide that you wanted to be part of Tam Luke's project?
When you meet somebody right away, you feel this connection, right? There's certain people you just know you're going to be lifelong friends. And we thought we were going to be on the phone for about 15 minutes. It turned into about an hour and 15 minutes. And I love what she's all about. I love the fact that she supports other women, challenging them to boss up. And, there's some fantastic women that she's joined forces with. And honestly, I'm privileged. I am privileged to walk alongside of the rest of these women and hear their stories as they share their perspective on life. And so I think it's going to be a really fun little book that she's collaborating with. So again, it's a privilege and an honor to be a part of it. She's a great lady.
Well, I love that because I resonated with her too. And that's how you ended up being on my Women Innovators program, is because of Tam Luke and her Boss Up program. So, we're all, around the globe coming together. I wanted to ask you one more thing. So the website is heartspeaks.com, and you have the TV program coming out on the Jewel Network, and that is called A Heart Speaks also?
Yes.
Okay, so and the book is Purpose in the Pain. Is that the title of your book?
That's correct. Yes, it is.
Where will we be able to find that book?
That'll be through Amazon, and it will be all over my webpage. And, you can also find me on Instagram at A Heart Speaks, and then the number 2. You feel free to email me, which is aheartspeaks2@gmail.com. I want to extend something to your viewers here. Sometimes it's a little scary to open up your heart to somebody, and really share things that are very intimate. And I want to please extend to you a free session for anybody. It's something that I offer to people. It's my gift. It's my gift to you, to your viewers. And all they have to do is go on my website. They can, click on my calendar and schedule a free breakout or breakthrough session. And I just would welcome you. I want to serve you in any way that I can.
Well, that's a beautiful gift. And I know that your story, will touch many people, and you're absolutely right about just listening to you. People know that when they will talk to you, that you will be someone who knows.
Thank you for that.
I doubt that you're there for them and will support them. I can feel that coming.
Thank you.
That, when we're 3,000 miles apart. Yeah. So that's really beautiful. So Kimberly, before I let you go, do you have anything else that you'd like to share?
Yeah, especially during this time, right? The coronavirus is keeping us quarantined and in our houses. And honestly, a lot of people are wrestling with anxiety because of that. I'm a people person too. And, most of my sessions with my clients have been on Zoom. And, it's the next best thing, but it's difficult. And it drums up a lot of things, perhaps even from our childhood. The fear of abandonment, of just the uncertainty. But I just want to say to you directly, if you're listening, watching this, please, if you've heard anything today, just know that there is always hope, that this is but for a moment, and it too shall pass. And there's so much to come. Utilize this time. It's awesome. If you're watching this, you're feeding your mind, you're feeding your heart, you're feeding your soul with goodness. And the word says to focus on whatsoever is lovely, right? Whatsoever is good, whatsoever is of good report. Focus on these things. Be mindful what you watch. Be mindful what you hear. Because as my grandmother used to tell me, what's in the well comes up in the bucket. And so those things that we take into our soul and into our being when the pressures of life come, what we've allowed to take up rent space sometimes up here is a thing that gets wrung out and spills over into somebody else. So be sure that you keep short accounts of that stinking thinking, and align yourself with somebody that I'm a very straightforward person, extremely transparent and real, and I like to get to the root of things very, very quickly. And I just extend that to you. Would you please take me up on my offer and come and let's have some time together, even if it's on Zoom or over the phone, whatever works best for you.
Wow, everyone, I think that you should take Kimberly up on her offer. And again, it's very easy. You can just go to her website, aheartspeaks.com, and find out everything. Again, Kimberly, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a fabulous day. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you. Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tammy Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.